Welcome to Carleton's Math Corner. Today, we're going to begin our study on parallel and perpendicular lines. At this time, please make sure that you have a notebook, something to write with, and your vocabulary packet. Our target today is I can determine if two lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. First of all, let's talk about two definitions. The first definition is parallel lines. Parallel lines are two lines that have equal slopes and will never intersect. So here's an example of two lines that are in slope-intercept form, and these two lines have the same slope. So they are parallel lines. Perpendicular lines are two lines that have opposite slopes, and they will intersect at a 90-degree angle. So this slope is 3 and this one is -1/3. So notice we took the reciprocal. Instead of 3/1, now it's 1/3, and then we took the opposite. So instead of positive, now it's negative. So if we look at these 5 pairs of equations, we need to determine if these lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. And in order to do that, first of all, we need to make sure that all of our lines are in slope-intercept form. So can you remind me, what does slope-intercept form look like again? Exactly, y equals mx plus b. So we need to make sure that all of our lines are in slope-intercept form before we can even determine if they have the same slope or opposite slope. Or maybe they don't have, neither one of them. So then we may have to just say they are not parallel or perpendicular. Okay. So let's look at the first two equations. And if you look at them, let's find, well, first of all, are they in slope-intercept form? Yes, they are. And so if they're in slope-intercept form, now I want to look at where that slope would be. And remember, M stands for slope. So I'm just going to choose a line or choose a color, and I'm going to highlight where our slope is. So there's our M. And if you look at those two, which category do they fall into? First of all, well, in order to be parallel, remember they have to be identical. So these slopes have to be the same. Their rise and their run has to be exactly the same. And in this case, this line is actually falling 7 and running 1, because remember, we can always put a 1 under any number. So I can always, put a 1 under here so that I could see what that slope is. So this one's falling 7 and running 1. This one is rising 7 and running 1. And so are they the same? No. Now for perpendicular, they need to be completely opposite. That means they have to be the opposite sign. So which these two are, like this one says -7 and this one says +7. So they are opposite of each other on a number line. However, they also have to be a reciprocal of each other. They have to be completely opposite of each other. And this one is -7/1 and this one's 7/1. And is that the reciprocal? No. So actually this one is a neither. This one does not fit the category of either one of them. And so I'm going to type in neither and then move on to the next. So number 2, now if you look at this, are both equations in slope-intercept form? Yes, they are. And if I look at just the slope, and I'm going to choose a brighter color, but if I look at just the slope, so my M, are they exactly the same? Yes, and actually I don't need to move on any further, because if they are identical to each other, then no matter what, they are parallel. Now number 3, are these equations in slope-intercept form? Well, the second one is, but if you look at the first, no, this y has to be by itself. So what do we do to move a coefficient in the front? How do we move it over and get rid of it, basically, next to this y? And remember, this 3 is being multiplied by the y. So how do we make that as 1y? Exactly. We need to divide by 3. If we divide by 3, 3 divided by 3 would be 1. And so we made it as 1y. But if you divide this left side of the equation by 3, what do you have to do to the other side? We need to divide every single term by 3. And so I'm going to divide each thing by 3. And what do we get? Well, now our equation is y equals, well, negative 2/3 is going to stay the same. I can't simplify that any further. But 9 divided by 3, I can simplify that to just 3 wholes. Now, is this in y-intercept form? Or in slope-intercept form, I meant to say. Yes, it is. And if we compare the slopes, so here's m and here's m, they are identical. So actually, this one is parallel as well. Okay, how about number 4? Is this in slope-intercept form? No. So that means, well, first of all, the x is on the wrong side. And then we also have this negative 5 in front of the y, and we need to get rid of that as well. Let's focus on the 2x though. How do we move that over to the other side? Yeah, in order to make it 0, we have to subtract it. And if I subtract it on this side, then that means I also have to subtract it on the right side. Make sure that the left and the right are balanced. So now I have this is gone now. This term is gone. And now I have 10 minus 2x on the other side. Now how do we get rid of the negative 5 again? And remember, this is a negative because subtraction really is adding negatives. And so this is a negative 5 times y. And in order to get rid of it, we have to divide. Exactly. We need to make this as 1y. We don't want y to disappear on this side, but we can make it as 1y. And so we need to divide by the negative 5. And this entire side also has to be divided by negative 5. So when we divide everything by negative 5, what do we get? We get y equals, well, can we put the x first? Let's do the x first, just so that it looks like it's in slope-intercept form. Well, we have negative 2x and divided by negative 5. What would that simplify down to? Yeah, 2/5x, or 2/5 times x. And then we have 10 divided by negative 5, and that would be negative 2. Nice job. And so now we can compare these two. And if you look at this, well, this one's negative 2/5 and this one's 2/5. So they are opposite of each other, but are they reciprocals of each other? No, they're not. So I can't say that they're parallel because they're not the same. And I can't say they're perpendicular because they unfortunately have, they don't have the reciprocal of each other. And so they're opposite in, sign, but they are not reciprocals of each other. So this one's a neither again. Doesn't work. How about the last one? Okay, this one definitely not in slope-intercept form, so we need to change this one. But this one down here looks like we are in slope-intercept form. So let's look at this. If we have, if we got to get rid of, first of all, we got to move that 3x over on to the other side. And so in order to do that, remember we subtract 3x. Kind of doing the same steps, same thing on the right side as well. We subtract 3x. And this disappears. And now, how do I get rid of 1/3 times y? Well, the opposite of multiplication is the inverse is division. So how do I divide by a fraction? What am I really doing? Exactly. Do you remember the keep, change, flip? Well, I'm really multiplying by reciprocal. So if 1/3 was flipped, then that would be 3/1. So really, when I divide by 1/3, what I'm technically doing, because this would be my second fraction, I am multiplying by the reciprocal. I'm multiplying by 3. And so on this side, when I divide by 1/3, I need to keep in my mind that really I'm just taking each one of these and I'm multiplying by 3. And so if I take 6 and I multiply by 3, then what would I get? 18. And if I take -3 multiplied by 3, then what do I get? -9. And then what happens over here when I have 1/3 divided by 1/3? Well, and I'll put the y over here, my y is still exactly where it's at. Well, my y now just has a 1 in front of it. But if I look at this, I just need to flip these around, right? Because I need it to be in slope-intercept form. So my slope needs to go first. And so when I look at this and I compare it with this equation, well, I notice right away the slopes are the same. And so parallel again. So we really didn't have any perpendicular lines on this one, which is fine. And actually on your assignment, you could have no perpendicular lines or no parallel lines. It just depends on how it works out. Remember though, parallel lines, we're looking for same identical slopes. Perpendicular lines, they need to be opposite sign, and they need to be reciprocal of each other. Okay, so oops, and they need to be reciprocal of each other. I'm trying to make this one smaller so you could see it. There. So opposite sign and reciprocal. Got to be both. Now, what I would like for you guys to do is I want you to try out a few questions. Here are your ticket problems, and I look forward to our next video. Thank you very much and have a great day.